Hello and welcome to my second Dforce tutorial. In the first you will have seen I used the timeline and the body morphs to allow Dforce to change the way that clothing was draping over the model. In this tutorial we'll be doing something very similar, again using the timeline, but we will be using it to drape the dress, in this case, over the model and also have her sitting in a chair. Before I get into that, a big thank you to my supporters, both on Patreon and Subscribestar, and also to those that have subscribed to this channel. So first things first, let's give this model a pose. So I'll double click to select the entire model, or you can select it from the scene selection. And we'll use this pose, which is a seating one. And straight away you can see that the dress clips through the legs, and she is also clipping through the seat as well. If we were to run a Dforce simulation on this, what would happen would be that the dress would explode out on the scene and not be very useful. So in order to prevent this, there's a few methods we can do. The first of which is to move objects out of the way of the actual item to be simulated. Let's correct her pose, have her seated in the chair a little bit better. I think that should be about right. And we're happy with that position. You then want to go to frame 30 on your timeline. And you change this from node to object, and then click the create keys. What this will do is it will create keyframes for the entire model. It takes a moment, and then we will also need to do it for the chair as well. So this records this as a final pose. So I go back to the start, frame 0. And now what we want to do is we want to move the items away from the object that's going to be simulated. So we start with the model herself. We'll move her up from the chair. It doesn't have to be too high, but high enough. But there should be okay. And we also want to adjust these arms because these elbows will be interacting with the dress. We want to move them out of the way. So if we select this part of her body and then twist her back and away from her legs. And the final thing we want to do is we want to move the chair away. So we'll do that. So if we look at the animation now, you can see that the chair moves under and she moves down to meet the surface of the chair. When you're happy with the way the scene looks, come over to the simulation settings. Want to make sure that start bones from memorized pose is on. The current frame set to animated use timeline to play timeline play range. And the final thing before we click the simulate button is we're going to hide the hair. This will speed up the simulation. And the hair doesn't really interact with the dress, at least down here, so we can hide that. If you hold down Control and click on the eye next to the hair, you'll see it be removed. When all those elements are ready, we can click Simulate, and the first thing that will happen is she will go to the memorized pose, and it will start to simulate moving from that pose into the final pose. Now that the first half is out the way, she's in her pose, we'll now start running through the timeline and moving the objects to the final position they need to be. As you can see, the simulation has finished. What we'll do, we'll put the hair back on. Again, holding down Control, clicking on the eye. You can see that the dress is more appropriately draped. So we go to iRay Preview. You can see how it looks. Much better. It actually has folds where it needs to, and it sits over the chair as it should do. I'll go ahead and render this out into a scene, and I'll show you that shortly. And here we have the final rendered image. That's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Please consider also liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.